So thank you all for being here. I really do appreciate it. It is going to be a series if you're interested. If this is useful for you on this occasion, I would love for you to pop in next week as well. I will be having it on Wednesday next week. And the goal is to do these small group health strategy discussions to help you appreciate the opportunities that you have to work toward your health goals in a very natural way. So I know we're all at different points on our journey, and it's not to say that anybody is excluded from this type of a group discussion, but it seems that everyone who's been attracted to it is on a journey. You all are at some point, you've committed to your health, you have recognized there are issues and that you need to do things a little differently. And that's what this is. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lisa Witherow. I own the DNA Advantage. I really am so passionate about health, as anyone who knows me is aware. I do research constantly, and I truly, truly love having the opportunity to introduce new concepts and really investigate. If I don't know the answer, I promise you I will research it. That's just my thing. So, what I am here to do today is to kick off a whole new way of thinking about health starting now. So, if you're not already on a journey of taking control of your health and the empowerment of our health journey and really just taking taking it so seriously as your own responsibility, you're going to think of it differently after this. I know it sounds dramatic, but it really should, because the way that we've done things and the way that we have been taught is just to allow things to progress and then try to address it after the fact. And when we are looking at it that way, it we feel like we're defeated before it even starts. You know, we can feel as if it is a a foregone conclusion that we are going to experience the problems, that we have to just kind of trudge along and manage, and that's not the case. When we are experiencing it that way, it is not our fault. It's also not our predecessors' fault. Like, our family members taught us what they were taught. And so we can't blame our families for telling us that we just go to the doctor if you don't feel well. And I'm not saying it's wrong to go to the doctor. What I do feel though is things have changed. In the last 100 years, our doctors don't know us really, unless we're really sick. Then they might know us, unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons. But, you know, when we used to live in a small community, our doctors were, they knew everyone in the town. They knew all the intricacies of our family members. They knew the health history. They knew who was having a baby soon. They knew all of the details of our families. And now that's not the case. And I feel like it just brings rise to our need to know ourselves better. And what I'm going to do is, I think the best way to really help you understand this new approach is to do a case study. Just run through a case study really quickly and let you hear a little bit about how this process works. And hopefully, it will bring rise to questions and topics that you want to hear about, which after that case study, you can ask questions, let me know what you're interested in learning about, and we can have a small group discussion about you all. But I'm going to look at my notes real quick because I don't have it memorized about this client. It has been a few years since I've worked with her, but I have spoken with her in the last It was about 3 months ago because she had just gone on a trip. But um, this example is a female. She was in her late 50s and complaining of fatigue, joint pain, and limited movement. Really, it was because of the pain that she was limited, but also weight gain that she had had. And I think after talking to her a while, I realized that her biggest issue was depression. And she really struggled to get out of bed every morning. There was a living situation that was kind of contributing to it, but it was not, it was within the first 2 weeks, I think, that I met her and was started working with her that she did move. So, well, it might have been a month, but I know it was relatively soon after I started working with her because I encouraged her to move out of that situation that was really holding her back and making her feel like she was kind of trapped. And once she did that, she was able to really focus on her health instead of those that she was living with. She said that her symptoms had been going on for 2 to 3 years and were just getting worse. So the fact of her, when she needed to be, um, it was just a perfect point for her to be getting the help and really getting support. And she knew that she was at that precipice where the depression was really interfering with her production. She had her own business. She wasn't doing what she knew she was capable of doing at that point. And she had kind of lost interest in many things that she used to love. And it really concerned her because she felt like that was impairing her, even just her enjoyment, but especially because her goal was to make a difference in the world. And it was getting in the way. Let's see. It definitely interfered with the relationships with her family members as well. Her relationships were strained with her children. And the only thing that she really got satisfaction from was her work, but even that was diminished by her fatigue. So, in her first appointment, she said that she didn't feel like anything could help because her doctors had said that she needed to simply manage her symptoms with medication and accept that things were going to change as she aged. And basically, I just rolled my eyes at that because what's that saying? That's saying that after a certain age, she was in her 50s, I think late 50s, but that does that mean we don't have quality of life anymore? Does that mean that we don't have any influence over our health and we just accept whatever comes? I think not. So I was definitely flabbergasted by that, and it's definitely propelled me into, wanting to work with her even more closely. While we waited for her DNA test results, I did ask her to start tracking her mood, her energy, and her pain level. I also suggested that she note her bedtime, her wake time, and generally what she was eating. So I didn't ask her to track every single item that she was eating, but to really be able to appreciate if she was eating on the run, if she was eating a lot of, going out to eat a lot, and really looking at what her habits were, if it was something that fluctuated or if it was really pretty consistent. Let's see. I also talked to her about her goals, her self identity, and any contributors that she felt played a part. And again, I think a lot of what she was hearing was transferring to her self identity. It was, I'm older now. This is just the way that it is. I feel like a burden to my family, and I don't feel like I'm contributing anymore. And again, unacceptable. I understand why she was feeling that way, but that was the messaging she was getting. And so I really wanted to help spin that in a new direction. And although I have to say, because she was so mired in this thought process, it was a slow process once when I first started working with her. Getting her to track things, even, it was really challenging. It was just the motivation wasn't there. And the belief that she was actually going to feel a difference was not very high. So once she started working through some of the program content, like I have a mindset segment in my program, and then I have family history and personal health history modules. She started to make connections. And I think the biggest connection that she made was she saw the value of tracking, and then she started going through and seeing some of the inefficiencies of her DNA, like what the things that she suspected. And because she was looking at, when we do the family history segment, you start looking at your family history and making some of those inferences of, you know, we all think about, oh, that runs in my family. But what we don't think about is what is behind all of that. So I think what came through for her was she would see the inefficiencies that were contributing to her symptoms. And when she made the dietary and lifestyle changes, she saw a difference. And then she realized, is it really that depression runs in my family, specifically her mom, or is it the deficiency of B12 and vitamin D that runs in my family that caused the depression? And so I think that's so valuable, because that's where we need to go with it. We need to appreciate that when we are diagnosed with something, or if we are concerned about a diagnosis that runs in our family, if we can appreciate the underpinnings of it, and it can be many different things. So that's the other part of really diving into DNA that's valuable. It's not just one thing, and that would make it really easy. But finding out what those threads are that we're leading to is so valuable, because then we start to see improvement. And what we saw in her DNA was that she did not process B12 well. Her vitamin D was not absorbed easily, and she lived in California. So the expectation was that she would get plenty of sun and not need vitamin D. That was her previous assumption. But when we looked at her DNA, she does not convert vitamin D from the sun efficiently. So we got her on a regimen of vitamin D. And it seemed to click for her that that's really what was going on with her mom as well. And her mom didn't go outside much either. She did. She did and does, but that was different for her. And so as we worked through her lifestyle, diet, and environment, we were able to find easy adjustments that she could make. And she began to feel like a different person. She literally told me, it was, I think, about 3 months into working with her, that she never thought she could feel that good. And now I talked to her, I think it was about 3 months ago. She said that she can't believe her energy level and her mood, the consistency of her mood is just blows her away. She never thought that she would be a morning person, but she loves her early mornings and preparing for her day. Since we worked together, she has lost weight. She has traveled abroad, and she has written a book. And she just never thought that she would be able, because again, she was told, you know, you're getting older, so you just kind of have to wrap it up. And I don't find that to be acceptable. And I'm so glad that she didn't either. I'm really excited for her, because she now, the control that she has over her health is also transferring to her relationships. She has much better relationships with her family members, better health, and certainly more confidence. She's making more of a difference in the work that she's doing, because she's stepped out and she's really made some alliances with other individuals in her industry in order to make that difference. So I think it's just been an amazing transformation. And originally it was, she didn't have faith. And I really feel like these are the stories that I want everyone to appreciate. And although they're very different circumstances for everyone, that's why we need personalized health approaches. We need to be able to identify what's going on in our world. And maybe it's something like, for me, a health concern. I was concerned about cancer as a family history factor because both my parents died of cancer when they were young. And I needed to be here for my kids. And I don't want my kids to endure that kind of loss of their parents, but also loss of their own control over health because they think it's an automatic risk factor that they are going to have to deal with. And I have a 23-year-old. My mom died when she was 29. Like, I'm not willing to just allow that to fester in their minds and make them think that that is what they have to accept if they're told that that's just a risk factor that's in your family, and just hope for the best. And that's what I was told. So luckily they don't have that feeling. And I've worked with them since they were little to really take control and recognize the opportunities that they have. So I'm just going to ask real quick, does anybody have any questions about the case study, or are there any particular topics or health issues that you would like me to identify some of the things that we would look at for those health concerns? If you have anything you want to share, you can unmute yourself, or and certainly you can type it into the chat if you don't want to speak, and you don't have to go on camera if you don't want to. It's no problem. Well, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about some of what you said this lady was facing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling some of those too, with fatigue, the weight gain, the joint pain. And I do take vitamin D. You know, I also yeah, the weight gain and the joint pain, that is still an issue for me right now. And
Yeah.
I'm sure if I lose the weight, my joints will feel better. So
Yeah.
that's the plan.
Right, right. It can be really challenging though, because you have to, a lot of times we look at like what comes first, like what was the starting point? And when we look back and we kind of trace back to when the symptoms started, if it was, weight gain and then joint pain, sometimes I'll talk it through with people, and I'll find that because of the joint pain, they stopped working out or they stopped exercising and moving as much, which then caused the weight gain or contributed to the weight gain. And so it really is important to look at those subtle nuances to better understand what the root cause is, and then create a plan. When you look at your nutrition, you're better able to understand how well your body processes nutrients, and then how am I going to release the weight that I would like to release, and without as much frustration or challenge. So that's another thing is looking at um, the nutrition aspect of it and know what's serving you. Like, has something changed? So I usually really go through all of that and look at all of those details. And when we see a change, let's say that if we were to look back in your history and we see that there's a change in your lifestyle, maybe more stress, or maybe there's you're not sleeping as well, things like that. I'm looking for like little hints like that. Does anything stand out to you, or do you feel like there's any time frame that this occurred?
Yeah, actually, it started like when I ate what 42. It's the weight gain started because I used to be skinny. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I used to be skinny, and if I gained some weight, all I had to do was just not eat for a certain time in a week or two, and it will be gone. But
Sure.
I find like things change once I hit the 40s.
Sure.
I'm not losing the weight fast enough, and it just keep piling on two by two. Like each year, I'm gaining like 2, 3 pounds.
Sure.
So till it's like like a snowball. It's like I'm trying all kind of things. It worked for a while, and then it stopped because I did intermittent fasting, and it worked for a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
But then it stopped. It's just not working.
Yeah, so it can be really helpful to get to know more of the details about, let's say, cortisol levels. So, what's your stress level? What time are you going to bed? All of those details to really, because when we look at DNA, we can better understand what our tolerances are. So, what are our strengths and weaknesses? What are our tolerances? Do we have an issue with melatonin production, as an example? Because if melatonin isn't producing, we're not getting the depth of sleep, which can cause cortisol levels to kind of stay at a higher level because we're not getting that really restful sleep, and our cortisol levels aren't resetting overnight like they should, like the levels should be. And so then we can start to really deal with issues of weight gain, because cortisol, of course, and that would be typically weight gain around the middle section, the hips and the belly. And that's an indicator. Now, of course, again, I look at DNA because I want to better understand hormones as well. When we see weight gain around the belly or the hips, we can also look at elevated estrogen, but we can get other clues on that as well. Just get a sense of where the hormones are and what stage of life we're in and all of that. But it
Right.
really is super valuable to appreciate hormones, DHEA, how, again, age wise, that gives us a hint as to when things started to change. And then, yeah, really diving into the stress and the lifestyle and things like that to know what can really be shifted. Um, but it does sound like there's some real opportunity to look at those factors, and I would highly recommend you start tracking some of them, like what time are you going to bed, what time are you waking in the morning, what do you feel your overall stress level is, and then of course your, like, what time of day are you eating. There's actually, I think I have notes here on this. I was just research.
Lisa, what if I tell you that I've done that and I'm still here? I
Yeah.
have started going to bed 7 o'clock in the evening, sometimes eight
Wow.
o'clock, and people are like, "Are you okay? You normally go to bed like 12, the earliest 10 o'clock, but now sometimes I'm going to bed earlier."
Yeah.
And I, I know it's my cortisol. Well, I don't know, no, but you know what I
Sure.
mean.
Oh, sure.
I
Yeah,
figure
right.
that's probably what it is, because I used to, when I was in my 30s and so, I used to go harder. So I used to not sleep well then. But it started affecting me in my 40s. You get
Right.
what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
even now that I'm trying to do better, it's still, I don't know.
Oh, no, I understand completely. And it's really helpful because circadian rhythm is the sleep cycle that we want to know. But if you have adjusted that and that hasn't helped, those are all so valuable to know. They're all clues that your body is giving you. Your body's like, that's not it. That's not what I need. And it's great. It doesn't mean that you don't sleep now or that you
Mhm.
shift, that you shift away from taking care of yourself in that respect. But you need to move on to other strategies as well. So
Yeah.
we're adding some additional strategies that could be very personalized. There are certain genes. There is like an MC4R gene that you look at that affects circadian rhythm and the depth of sleep that you get. There's the UCP2 gene that is all about metabolism and energy production. So when I hear you say fatigue, and we're likely getting enough sleep, then I would look at that. It's really interesting because we have so many different genes to look at. There are several genes that are related to fat metabolism. The FTO gene is one of those. And we look at fat metabolism because when we look at nutrition, we look at categories of protein, fat metabolism. We look at um, carbohydrates. We want to understand how well your body breaks those down and in what percentages we want to be like optimizing your health and weight loss. So you're looking at the genes to better understand how your body works and what it is that you need most. It's not exclusive to nutrition because although that's a factor, we also know that being able to move to minimize joint pain, to be able to have the support that you need through like nutritional support and really make sure that you're able to see improvement. Um, there are many different options that you can look at. And I think that's where we run into problems because, you know, we hear this person lost weight on this diet, then we hear this person uh, ended up, you know, losing weight because they just started walking. And then there's another person that says, you know, that they just you know, started drinking more water and that helped them lose weight. So, and that is legitimate. I mean, none of those are wrong ways to do it. Um, but like the person who started drinking water was probably dealing with a toxicity. There are three things that I tell people that you're likely, if you have symptoms or something that you want to improve and it's not improving, you either have a deficiency, you have a toxicity, or you have an imbalance in your system. And what we want to be able to do is identify which of those three is most likely. And then we want to drill down into the details of, and that's why I say the tracking gives us all information. Everything you've shared helps give me clues as to what the next step would be. And so I really feel like it's, and for some people, they do need to do DNA because they're just like, they're like, you know what? I don't know. I've tried everything, nothing works. It might not be weight loss. It might be the joint pain, or it might be something else that they're concerned about. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that can give you the raw data of your body to tell you what your body's capability is. It's not telling you what you're destined to become, though. I will say that because it's really important. You know, people who say that they have Alzheimer's that runs in their family, and they're like, well, I don't even want to know my DNA because I don't want to know that part of it. And that's because they've been told that the APOE4 gene is the culprit of Alzheimer's. And I mean, again, it's good and bad when I say this, but there's not just one gene that is responsible. We have many genes that are contributors, and you know there are different genes that I look at for Alzheimer's, for diabetes, for anxiety, depression. We look at the full complement, just like we look at a whole body. When we want to see what's going on, we want to be able to understand the underpinnings of what is going on in the body, and then what can we do to support it. I'll give you an example. When we look at a particular gene that isn't functioning well, we can look at what is a cofactor for that gene. So it is, let's see, one good example is the IRS1 gene, which is an insulin resistance gene. And when we look at that for diabetes, I want to better understand how does the body process insulin? How does the body even manage melatonin? Because there's a gene that is linked to melatonin that when you eat later in the evening, you have more risk for diabetes. So, although this is type 2 diabetes, but when we start to look at like the IRS1 gene, which is the insulin resistance gene, and we see variants, we know that vitamin D is a cofactor. So vitamin D, for those people who have that variant, I want to make sure they've got enough vitamin D on board. But I'm not just going to start saying take vitamin D. I want to look at those vitamin D genes to understand how efficient are they? Are they absorbing it well? Are they converting it from the sun? What is your best source of vitamin D, and how do we need to take it all year round, or are we able to rely on the sun during the summer months or the months of more sun? I think being able to really give a well-rounded plan for each individual is so empowering, because then you suddenly know what your body's capable of and where you might fall down on the job. And then if you can give your body that extra support, it is you're less likely to experience disease. You're more likely to have stability and consistency of your mood and your energy levels, and your sleep, and all of the functions that we rely upon until they're not there. So I do think you have a lot of really good data, Angela. Like, there is a really good foundation for you. I think it's just kind of like escaping your grasp, because that, yeah, you have
Yeah.
gotten the chance to kind of pull it all together. Um, but yeah, it's something that I think, yeah, we'll have to talk about it at some point in detail, because I think, there are other things that can play a part. And that's where I get into asking a lot of, personal questions about, you know, timing of things and all the details that can be helpful. But yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. And I hope to get to talk to you about that again we'll talk one-on-one about that.
Yeah. All right, Lisa.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, if not, you're welcome to jump in though, if you decide you have a question or a comment, or you have a topic that you want me to kind of riff about. Um,
I
but
would,
what, yes.
well, I've gone through a B1 protocol and oh, well, I'll just tell these people some Bindi knows me right there. Um, I was having fatigue that was just it was low grade over the years, and I was having all these symptoms with stiffness and frozen shoulder, and I have type 1 diabetes. So in the end, I figured it out after decades. I after probably anyway, it probably started when I was a kid. And when I was in my 40s, I realized after cleaning up mold that I had mold toxicity.
Mm.
So then what I realized over the next decade was it's very hard to escape mold. So I was treating and treating and treating and trying different things, trial and error, and spending a fortune on supplements. So in retrospect, DNA testing would have been great, because then I could have worked more and made some money. Anyway, all that said and done, so I've done a full there's different ways you can have mold sickness, and I just finished an antifungal for having invasive aspergillosis, but I also have an inflammatory reaction, which is another way of being sick from it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm still having that. So it turns we do have a spot way up high in the ceiling with a little bit of mold. So I know that I had stopped my air purifier, and suddenly my toxin levels went up again, and my
Mhm.
actual antibodies to toxins. So I've gone through B1, realizing, wow, that makes a difference. And for a diabetic, that's an important one. And then I've been doing a lot more B3 for helping me detox. Hi, Dev. And then I've done I don't even know which ones, but the methyl folate, methyl
Mhm.
cobalt,
Methylcobalamin.
MTHFR stuff.
Mhm.
But I guess what I'm thinking by hearing you is this is not fully going away for the rest of my life. And it's going to be constantly monitoring my food, monitoring my environment. And I'm thinking, I'm so afraid not to take certain supplements now for
Mhm.
fear of backsliding. I think it would really be nice after we sell our business to do
Mhm.
this for once and for all and know exactly which vitamins I'm absorbing properly and which
Mhm.
ones I need. I even though I've discovered a lot by trial and error over a very long time, I still think there's probably things I'm doing that aren't necessary.
Well, that's another thing that can be really empowering is being able to know the efficacy of our nutritional supplements and can I get something from food? Now, when it comes to aspergillus, aflatoxin, uh, even ochratoxin, when we start looking at the different uh, foods that can contain them, and those might be the contributors to some of our nutrition, that's when we say, you know what, I'm better off taking that supplement than eating that food, right? Because you don't
Mm,
want to take the risk. So things like um, corn, grapes, peanuts, those are at the top of my list for like any kind of like I don't eat peanut butter because of mold.
mm,
I won't even anything that's processed like or that has peanut butter in it unless it's baked and maybe on a rare occasion will I have something with peanut butter in it because of the potential mold. Because I am mold sensitive as well. But there are specific genes that you can see that show you what your susceptibility is to mold. And then again, there are cofactors. So it's understanding, okay, let's say that there's a mold exposure that you can't avoid. How can we bolster the system to give you the strength and the resiliency? We want to make sure your immune function is strong. We want to
mm,
make sure that you're getting the right foods and the right nutrition. And that, so there's in the program that you're referencing, I know we've talked about it before, but the program goes through your nutrition, so you're going through all of the nutrients in general. So, like in categories, like I said, protein, carbs, fats, you're going through all of those, looking at histamine intake. What does histamine do to the body? And with mold, that's very relevant.
mm,
It's relevant to everyone, but it's super relevant when you've got a mold toxicity or have had. And then you look at specific nutrients like vitamin A, every one of the vitamin Bs, vitamin C, D, E, all of the vitamins specifically to see how well do we absorb and convert those nutrients. What form do I need if I am taking a supplement, or can I get it from food? And then you create that plan of what should my diet consist of mostly. So I do an 80-20 rule. When it comes to mold toxicity, I may be a little bit more stringent because I don't want 20% corn in my diet or 20% peanuts, right? So it does depend on the person, but 80-20 because it's easier to stick to if it's something that you aren't so regimented. But if you know it's going to make you deathly ill, it's not worth it. So there's that. Then we go into inflammation, which is a big part of mold toxicity. We want to
yeah.
know detoxification, which is a big part of mold toxicity. So those are two more categories we go over. Then we go over oxidative stress. How well does your body rebound when you are dealing with stress, whether it's environmental stress or whether it is internal stress that we're generating? And then we also look at immune and gut health. All of those categories are super relevant to everyone. But when we
Mm,
look at mold, we know that they all play a part. And we want to see when we look at those individual categories, we want to see which one is going to be your Achilles heel.
mm,
Because one will stand out where you're like, ooh, okay, we really need to bolster your immune system, or we really need to make sure. And that could mean it could cross over to your nutrition because your antioxidants might be weak. So
mm,
it's like we look at them again. I don't look at just a person and say, "Oh, well, you just have this, take this vitamin." We have to look across the board at everything and know how your body's going to respond most optimally. And of course, what your goals are, what your family history is. And when you start to really pull all those pieces together, it's like magic. Like it really does give you such a sense of relief, because you're like, I'm not just like kind of exposed to whatever's there and then I have to deal with it. I know how I can protect myself, and I know how I can bolster the system so that I don't, so I'm, shored up and protected. And what your threats are, because like environmentally, in the fall, leaves are going to have more mold. So we have to be aware of that. And it's things that, some of us really do take for granted, but it is, let's make sure you've got the nutrients and the supplements that are going to serve you best when you're facing those kinds of concerns.
And just when you talk about so many systems are involved, it's instead of me trying to cover all my bases for the rest of my life, it would be nice to know which ones to really focus on and, which ones to ease up on occasionally.
Sure. Sure.
I
Yeah,
can see
and it
that.
can get expensive, and
Yeah.
and if you are dealing with like even the details when you're trying to support your detoxification pathway. We know glutathione is very much involved in your antioxidants as well as your detoxification. So
Mm.
if glutathione is an issue, we want to know which serves you better, a precursor like NAC
Mhm.
or actual glutathione. And then being able to look at the genes to understand that is so helpful.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I
Thanks for the
raised my
question.
hand because when she said, so I just have to live with this the rest of my life, and she's talking about mold. I had mold. It took me a year to get rid of it. But the one thing that she said, if you know you've got some in your house, you will not get rid of mold unless you
Mhm,
take care of that. So
mhm,
the only thing that I did, because I didn't even realize where I got the mold from until I was studying and we did the test, and I'm like, where did that come from? And then finally, much later, I remembered that we had a water leak that was in our bedroom because the kitchen is on the other side of the wall. And only like a year before this happened. And when they took care of it, I did ask them, do we need to do anything for mold? Because obviously the little hole in that pipe took from when we moved into the house to do that. And the guy said, no, because we're taking care of it on the walls because they took them down. So the only thing we did, because I was just scared of, oh, where's it coming from? Although I know you can have been exposed years before and have it show up. So the only thing we ended up doing was, and we found a guy kind of accidentally anyway, he called. I didn't like all the people that get rid of it, the places I went, and I knew where to go, but I didn't find anybody that I could even talk to. And this fellow said he wanted to come out and check. And all we had to do was, which most people don't think of, we had to do our the HVAC. So they had to go up in the
mhm.
attic and do that because yeah, they cleared it in the bedroom, but it's in your air. And I actually got some test things. My husband had to climb up and put them on the vents, and they came back with the mold. So that was the only thing we had to do. But
Yeah.
it did take me a year. And so all the things that Lisa's talking about were things that I was doing. I was working with somebody that
Mhm.
works
Yeah.
on mold. So, and the diet part is really important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And
you don't have to live with it. You can get rid of it.
right. Yeah. It really is. There are certain factors though. I can appreciate the concern of like in your environment externally, you can't control those factors, like the fact that, you can't banish the leaves on the ground. Unfortunately, we can't magically make them go away. But I do feel like we can certainly within our own home, we have to make that investment in making those uh, changes and make sure you do test the environment and check into all those details. Which again, we'll talk about that again later, I know. But yeah, it is any type of health issue that we are either concerned about or experiencing, we do want to look at the threads and how they all link to things like nutrition and inflammation and detoxification, and better understand maybe there are other things that have happened to us in our lives that make sense now because we start to see that commonality between them, and we can see which of those categories is more of an issue. That gives us a hint. Then when we do our DNA, we can really dive in and see what's going on. Are there any other questions or comments?
Good to see everyone. I just came in late.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
So I guess a question I have though is like I mean it's a topic right now. Everyone's talking about it. Like, so I guess Jess and I here we actually have it's not huge, but we're noticing it sometimes around the windows and stuff, but like even like black mold, right? So like does that cause like fatigue? Does that cause like
Mhm.
things like that? Because I don't know, it's so weird. Whenever we're out, we're like fine.
Mhm.
But then sometimes we come back home and it's just like we're exhausted,
Mhm.
tired. Um, yeah, we'll have like two coffees, you know, and it's just like we're still just kind of like very much. I mean, we work from home, both of us, right? So we're kind of just like always here, and we kind of noticed a little bit of it. But I mean, does that is that, or is it like something else? Like, does the lighting play a factor in that? Like when it comes to, yeah, like I
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
came in a little later, but yeah.
no, that's fine. That's fine. It was perfect timing. But yeah, I mean, a lot of things can play a part, of course. When we're dealing with lighting, if we have, bright lights on at nighttime and we have our melatonin isn't, that's what it's reliant upon is our lighting, making sure that we don't throw ourselves off. But if you know your sleep cycle is pretty good, you feel like you're getting pretty deep sleep and good amount of sleep, I would definitely say, well, no matter what, no matter what, if you start to see mold, you definitely want to address it. And I wouldn't just address it on your own. Like I would have remediation. I would have somebody come in and address it. Um, if you are going to clean it yourself, like if it's in a small area and you're going to clean it, definitely wear a mask and make sure that you do it really, like, read about it. Yes.
Hmm.
Devin,
Hey.
no Javex, no bleach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Jess, we're really big on like natural health
Yeah.
cleaners. She makes her own kind of natural health stuff. So a
I
lot
have
of
a really
vinegar.
good recipe, and thyme is very important. The essential oil thyme.
Essential oil. Yep.
Yeah. And just so you know, the fact that you leave and you feel better is huge
It
because
is.
I'm one out of four people carries that with them. And I've had this my whole life. It took me till 10 years ago to even know what the problem was. But now that I do, it's taken me 10 more years to rearrange my life to be away from it.
Yeah.
So you're good, but do not hesitate to get yourself a good air purifier. Yeah,
Mhm.
that I would say in my thinking, that was the dumbest thinking, is thinking $800 was too expensive
Mhm.
because not working and being in bed all the time is a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so true. And yeah, there are so many things that we really can do to protect ourselves and support ourselves, and making sure that we're taking those steps as soon as possible, just because and I mean, doing it sensibly, don't just rush into it and use bleach because that can make things worse. But definitely, yeah, looking into it and getting to the root of it. If you feel like there's a source, like Carol was saying, the HVAC system, once it's in the HVAC system, it will spread into other rooms, and you just don't want to allow that. You have to make sure you capture the opportunity.
By the way, Devin, if you wonder if you really have a mold problem, it's not expensive to figure it out on your own and know whether to go deeper.
Yeah.
You get the little test things, and believe me, they will grow it or not.
Yeah, the agar
Petri dish.
plates, you can get on Amazon
Yeah.
agar plates and the mold testing, and just see. You
And
can
then if
plate.
it grows, then you send them in and you pay some money to them and they come back and tell you what it is. That's
Yeah,
how.
what form of mold it is. Yeah.
And we didn't have a problem except for when I put it up by the by the HVAC, which they tell you to use one up there. And we put it in the room furthest from ours, and sure enough, there it was. They tell you where to put it, so
Hmm.
it's not
Yeah.
expensive to find out.
Yeah, it's helpful because we actually have a desk. Like it's like a not a desk, but it's like a bedside table and it's beside our wall. And we were just cleaning the house one day and we just ended up moving it and it looked like there was like a little bit on the wall and we're just like, holy shit. So then we just like
Yeah.
put some vinegar and just some like, natural cleaning products and it never came back. Like we never put the actual bedside table that close to the wall and it hasn't really come back at all. So I don't know, we're kind of just like, okay, is that it? But yeah, if there are some like tester things that we can just get from Amazon, I think that can be helpful for us for sure.
Yeah. And the other thing is that actual piece of furniture. I would definitely wipe that back
Oh
down
yeah, yeah. We
because
emptied
yeah.
it and like
But if you're gonna
she's
test, it's not even you just put it in, like, you get a set, like
Mhm.
it's 4 or 6 or something.
Right.
Set them in different rooms. And and you only do it for a certain amount of time. And if it's there, it'll grow and you'll know that you have it in that room.
hmm,
And
yeah,
then if it's in that room, it could be in your HVAC and spread to everything else. So, yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, it's interesting and helpful too. Yeah, thank you.
Bindi, did you have a comment or question?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I slowly woke up. It's early in Australia here,
Oh yeah.
and I got a noisy cat. I was just wondering, because my chronic fatigue started with an accident when I was 25. I had a boating accident, and I think I'm stuck in the fight and flight with my nervous system. And then, of course, all other things come on top of it. I'm wondering if, like, I have tried some brain retraining, if more brain retraining would be more helpful, because I've tried like so many different diets and supplements.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you would ask that question because I used to own a company called Peak Brain Performance, and I did brain retraining. That was my
Oh,
primary
wow.
function. I did neurotherapy, and I do feel that that can be very helpful. I would definitely here's my distinction, and it's interesting because this is why I moved to DNA and left behind the work that I was doing after I worked in that capacity for 11 years. And one of the things that I saw when I worked with clients who had an injury, a physical challenge that occurred, and that was what set off their issues, I was more likely to experience improvement doing the neurotherapy. If it was something that was more and trauma, any kind of like childhood trauma or trauma issues, it seemed to be very helpful. But when you see that things aren't happening, either retaining the benefit or they're not getting benefits. Like I had people, I never had anybody who said they didn't have a benefit to the training. But if it didn't stick or it wasn't enough, there are some homeopathic remedies that are really tied to helping you either through chiropractic or through the neuro work that can help you retain the benefits more. So I can share that with you. I'd have to look it up because it's in my database. I don't have it handy here, but I can share that with you. And also, when it comes to if there are common challenges that, like, let's say that you had issues, but they intensified after the accident, or they kind of run in the family, then that's when it's kind of a bridge of the neuro work and the DNA, which I know you have access to DNA support, but it's just looking at overall how your body is, what was the crux of it, like what was the kickoff that made it so challenging,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Yeah, I figured I was a sitting duck because two of my sisters also have chronic fatigue syndrome. So I'm like, okay, it's genetic. So I did some genetic testing, just basic, and picked up MTHFR mutations, and my sisters would have that too. So we can't detoxify things, and we're
Mhm.
not good with shock and things like that. So one of my sisters had a virus overseas, and another one had horse riding and car accidents. So there was always something that set us off. So there must be, yeah, the genetic stuff in the background going on.
Yeah, but I would definitely look at your the inflammation genes, and I would also suggest that you look at your cortisol related genes, because when there's
Mm-hmm.
an accident, when there's an injury of sorts, you can your body should be resilient, right? And you should be able to bounce
Yeah,
back.
people get over it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what can happen with people who have those challenges with their cortisol and the nervous system overall, it's like it just kind of, like you said, fight or flight, you get kind of stuck. And, there's
Mm-hmm.
the sympathetic and parasympathetic
Mm-hmm.
that you want to be able to kind of be flowing through those processes all throughout the day. So you're in rest and digest and then fight or flight because you're gearing up for activity. And when you're not able to do that seamlessly, you kind of can get locked in to one or the other. And neither one
Yeah,
is good to get locked
definitely.
in. So, yeah, just
Yeah.
really being able to kind of dive in a little deeper to the details and the history of it, and knowing that your sisters also have challenges. I think, it isn't exclusive to the accident. I wish that it was simple, and
Mm-hmm.
for all of us. I don't think for any of us really it's simple. And that's where we run into problems, right? Because we hear that, oh, the neighbor, they did this and this worked for them, and then we were, it's all different. We all have a very complex system. And so, I think that when it comes right down to it, um, we really need to know our own bodies, and we need to dive deeper and appreciate. It's so great that you have done some of the investigation already, and it's looking at what can I learn next, and what can I do to start tracking and start paying attention to those subtle details that really will make a difference for me. And everybody, it's different. I'd say it's interesting because when I look at this group, we're all from different areas of the world, and we all have the desire to just feel better. And, I think whether it's performance that we're looking for, I want to make sure I can continue to do yoga into my 70s and 80s. Like, I want to be able to do these things. And that's why when I talk about performance, I'm not talking just about athletes, although that's relevant too. But we need to be able to do the things that we want to do. And if we have some kind of limitation, I feel like really reflecting and looking at the details of our body can be immensely helpful, because we can really appreciate what our body needs. And, the first opportunity that we all have is to look at our current approach to health. And, do we prioritize our health, or do we put everyone else's needs in front of our own? And for a long time, especially women tend to do that. And then we finally realize, okay, this isn't working. I need to put myself first, whether it's our job that gets in the way, or whether it's our children, that we prioritize everybody else and everything else before ourselves. And, I think a lot of men are like, well, I can just power through it. I'm just going to do it and get through. And it doesn't really matter if I don't feel great. I'm just going to do it. But when you start listening to your body, you really can get through and power through, because your body has everything that it needs. So I think that's the first step, is to really appreciate what our needs are. And then the second is, what do we believe about health? Like, do we believe that our health, like, what is serving us? Like, do we believe that our health is just going to naturally decline and we're going to accept that? Or do we feel that we have control over our health and we can contribute in very, very strategic ways? And I think, again, going back to the very beginning, which I think some of you missed, but we're taught by people who had very good intentions that, they teach us, oh, just do what you have to do and get through it. And if you need any help, call the doctor. Well, okay, but that's not really working out for most of us. So I think getting the help that you need, but going to the doctor with knowledge about your health, knowledge about your body. And if they don't listen to you, you're not going to the right doctor. You need to go to somebody who listens to you and who respects where you're coming from and what you have in terms of knowledge about your own experiences and your health history. And getting rid of those limiting beliefs and moving beyond them is really powerful, because when we believe that we aren't just declining and we have to accept whatever risk factors with mold or with any kinds of limitations because of an accident, we need to we're like then we know we have the power to make decisions that will make a difference for us, and it's super powerful. If we believe that it's just, oh well, I had an accident, so now I have to deal with this pain, or now I have to deal with this limitation, well then we're never going to try to make it better. So that's where I think limiting beliefs, we absolutely have to dissolve them. And then the next step is we want to identify the one thing that you want to focus on in terms of a goal or a concern or a symptom, and really zoom in on that one factor that you want to change one at a time, because then you're really able to do that without feeling like you're all over the board and like you're just distracted and everything else is kind of like, I lost track of what I'm taking for that. I have no idea. So now I'm just going to drop it. And then tracking the indicators and the variables. What seems to make a difference? What really helps and what doesn't seem to help? And like, when are things better? Is it during certain seasons? Is it during certain times of the day that things seem to get better? All of these steps can be done on your own, or you can work with a practitioner to get the guidance to help you really process that. And some of you have practitioners that really do help you with those things. And then, sometimes we feel like we're kind of on our own. And that's why I'm having these sessions, is because I want people to know, like, it's so important that you all know that there is a community available, that we care about our health. And when you have people encouraging you and you have ideas and people to bounce thoughts up against, it really does make a difference. Of course, I like to take the next step and look at DNA and go over health history and uncover the inefficiencies and some of the concerns that we might have, so we don't just accept what's to come. But you know not everyone is ready for that. So I like the idea of being able to just be accessible. And if people have questions, if you like, I'm going to be having another call on Wednesday of next week to go over some more questions. If you come up with any additional thoughts or questions that you want to bring next week, I'm happy to answer them. But I think, we can get an amazing amount of data from our bodies when we start to pay attention, when we look at our DNA, when we track our information, and when we look at our history, family history, as well as our own personal health history. So those are the things that I would highly recommend. And I think getting to the root cause, if we have symptoms, and looking at what our opportunities are to prevent challenges, is just huge. So any other questions or comments? Because I would love for you all, if you're able to, next week. It will be 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week as well. Bindi, I'm going to have to make an adjustment to accommodate Australia sometimes and make them at different times. But yeah, I really am excited to, I appreciate that you all came, and I'm excited to continue to the discussion and give you some more ideas. And again, if there are certain topics, you can always reach out via Angela. Nice to have you here. But you can always reach out to me individually as well and let me know what questions you have, and I can incorporate it into next week's discussion. But thank you all so much, and I will hopefully see you next week.
Thank you,
Sure.
Lisa. That was great. Very motivating.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.